Last time on Star Trek The Next Generation.
About to stay in.
All right, stay in them.
Well, we live every move. Oh, it's specs.
Dude, they're all specs and they all...
It's time for a brand new Pokemon Draft League.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water.
Pretty much playing Pokemon all the time has prepped me for this. I thankfully know how to use a knife, and I can cut vegetables, so I'm hoping that these come out all right.
I see you copies hiding with a disguise because I'm shocking. You can see it with a look in my eyes. I'm seeing the lies.
You were the chosen one. You get your rear end in there and you play the way you know how to play. We can win the game.
Gliscor can beat these two, so we want to keep Gliscor alive, and we don't want to throw it away. It cuts to me throwing it away immediately. And we're just going to hope that it's not Ice Beam, like Combine Bolt Beam. And it is. Okay, so this game's definitely over.
And now the conclusion.
Okay, I want to talk about the Choice Scarfers in OU specifically because lower tiers have somewhat different rules, and obviously something little cup is an entirely different beast. But in OU, which is the main tier, there's been different changes happening to Choice Scarf over the years, and so I'd like to establish sort of a guidebook. If I were going to build a team and I say I want to put a Choice Scarfer on it, right? How fast do I have to be in order to actually be considered as a Choice Scarfer? So
I think it's also like how good do you have to be as well? Like, are you giving up something by being this Choice Scarfer, and are you actually doing anything with it?
Exactly.
Right?
And so I sort of want to establish some explicit rules so that maybe I can look back on them if I forget. So if we look back at something like Generation 4 OU, we talked in the previous video about how Flygon was a really good Choice Scarfer. It's base 100 speed tier, and so 100 or something like Gengar or Latias at the base 110s are also good Choice Scarfers, and that basically outspeeds any Pokemon no matter what. It's not also Choice Scarf, right?
Yes.
So there's no question about it. You don't have to think about it. Something like Infernape, I guess, technically could run a Choice Scarf. I don't.
Same thing applies as a Flygon, right? You have U-turn to get on out of their bad matchups. You're faster than the current best Scarfer as well, and can threaten it with Scarf HP Ice or anything like that. You can threaten a Dragonite with Scarf HP Ice. You can threaten a Gyarados Thunder Punch. You're not as easily to fit on a team, in my opinion, because Flygon has beautiful immunities.
Infernape a lot at all, really, in the videos you've been doing, but also I don't play it myself, so maybe that's just selection bias. But then in Gen 4, you also have Scarf Tyranitar, right?
Yes, not as popular now. Was more popular back in the day, but definitely was a mon.
And that sort of blows my mind because Tyranitar is base 61 speed. It's so slow. And so yeah, it'll be able to outspeed and KO opposing Tyranitars, which is important, and it still outspeed normal Latias. I guess Latias was banned back in the day. So
the big one is it outsped Starmie, so it was able to pursue trap and crunches. So same thing with Latias at the time, yes.
And Rotom it would also be good for. So it definitely has a purpose, and so that
it had a purpose back then, yes. Not to say that it's still being ran, but yeah.
I guess it could outspeed Tinkerbell, which also isn't ran.
Yeah, exactly.
So back in that
Gen 4 is easier to, I feel like Gen 4 is easier though to make an argument because the power level is lower and they're specifically Mons or C, and they also stay there typing, which is the big one.
And so that is a Pokemon that you don't necessarily outspeed all the guys. I guess you outspeed basically all the guys if you outspeed Starmie, because that's pretty fast.
Yeah.
It's just not, I guess, like Weavile or something. I don't know.
Yeah, like Weavile would outspeed like T-Tar and things like that. But like Gen 4 specifically, Scarfers were still good. And a lot of people, there's still random ones you can still get away with it on, right? If you really want to. Heatran can still do it if it wants to. Latias is a phenomenal Scarfer in that team. Like, amazing. Because it's faster than Flygon and things like that, but it also can, and this is going to be a point that we bring up later, I think, when we go to Gen 9, but it can disrupt with Trick, right? But also support with Healing Wish. And that's a big point that I think we're going to bring up in Gen 9 when we jump up to Gen 9 about what makes the benchmark of a Scarfer being good, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And then Pokemon that were previously used as choice Scarfers. We can just briefly bring up, of course, power level. Like you say, it was a lot lower. So choice Scarf Nidoking, maybe not in Gen 4, but in Gen 5 when it was sheer force, and Gen 6 when I started playing, people were still talking about choice Scarf Nidoking as being a thing.
Yeah, that was an option. I think choice Scarf Hydreigon's another one that could have done it as well. Keldeo was something you might have ran. Even Serp was cool because it can glare, spam, and then Leaf Storm late game.
Yes.
But I mean, you're obviously trying to talk about the GOAT of Scarfers of Gen 7, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about Gen 7 now. If we look at Gen 7, the most relevant Scarfer to me is obviously Kartana. So if we look at the base 110 speed tier, we have Kartana, we have Blacephalon. And I remember building for Gen 7 and saying, oh, I'm going to run Scarf Blacephalon. And that'll outspeed just about everything. And it will, until they bring out a late game choice Scarf Kartana. And then you realize it's not going to win. And so when
you're also fighting back then versus Pursuit, which actually was still in the game at the point as well. So that's a big thing too for Blaze.
Yeah. And it was in Gen 8 as well, right? They made it to Gen 8.
No Pursuit in Gen 8.
Well, not Pursuit, but Kartana was in Gen 8.
Yes.
And so those two were fighting the same battle at that point, although I don't remember if Blacephalon was even OU at that point. I think it was OU.
Blacephalon is OU, and very much so. Ghost types are probably at their peak in Gen 8. Like, it is, Specs is, if you don't have Tyranitar, Specs is clicking Shadow Ball and two-shotting everything.
Out of sight, out of mind. I always forget how the previous tiers went. But, yeah, it was either Gen 7 or Gen 8, but probably both is the same difference. Is that when you have Kartana and Blacephalon on the same tier, you run a Choice Scarf Blacephalon, you think you're going to get away with it. But then you don't, because you have Choice Scarf Kartanas. So, when it comes to Choice Scarfers in Gen 7 or maybe Gen 8, I think the benchmark has increased, right? You can't get away with very many slow Pokemon. I'd say maybe the only slow Pokemon that you would see that would run a Choice Scarf would be Magnezone, maybe?
Yeah, literally Magnezone.
And
literally Magnezone, so it can actually trap and things like that. Yeah.
For Kartana, I guess. That's not Choice Scarf.
No, yeah, literally trapping Cart as well. That's basically it, I would say, in that tier, because it'd still be a check to things like Medicham, Manaphy, Scizor, Serp, all of them, right? But then after that, it kind of goes like faster. You have like, Victini, Lele, Feeny could do it too if you really wanted to, Serp, Cart. I mean, the reason that Cart was such a phenomenal Scarfer is because, first off, Cart as itself is a threatening, broken Pokemon.
Yes.
Right? I actually, personally, am of the belief that it probably could have been banned in Generation 7. But that's because it can run Z moves, which are explosive, and then it can run Scarf, it can run Speed Booster, but that's because of its ability Beast Boost. That's what makes Kartana so deadly. Not only that, but his coverage is great, right? Like Leaf Blade, it's a strong move that can crit, right? It's no longer 70 base power, it's 90 base power. You have knockoff to get rid of items, you have Sacred Sword, your moves don't miss.
That's, I think,
your moves never miss.
About Kartana is that
you're getting something out of it.
You hate Heatran so much because you have to use a move that misses. You hate all of the psychic types because they have to use Focus Blast. Kartana
and Card doesn't.
Never misses.
Yeah.
Unless, like, what? It's used its Z Giga Impact and it still wants to click Giga Impact. That's the only time?
Literally. I think the biggest thing with Cart too is that, like, the only way to stop it was either your Rocky Helmet or your secondary effects, right? Like Zapdos' static is probably the best one, but like Cart could even Z Giga Impact to get past it. And if Scarf Cart doesn't get static by Zapdos, like that's it, leftovers gone. You know, Rocky Helmet gone, etc. Like Cart actually, Sacred Sword good, Leaf Blade's good, Knockoff's good. Its stab steel move is pretty weak, but it can get stronger, right? With Beast Boost. 70 base power is enough. Like there are fairy types are super ridiculously relevant in Gen 7. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them in the OU tier, like a lot of them, right? You have Clef, you have Diancie, you have all of the Tapus. Megirna, and then obviously most of those mons that I just mentioned, it's neutral on, but it's a strong neutral, you know, coming off of that 181 attack. So Cart's just able to do that, and also Cart can function like it's a Pokemon that can do its job while also potentially, it's almost like a Dragon Dance when it gets a kill, right? It's literally a Dragon Dance when it gets a kill. It's faster than you, and it's getting that Moxie boost, that Beast boost, and then on top of that, Cart could also defog. So it had these roles where it'll beat you as a Scarfer and also set up for its own sweep. It can even put air, like the set was usually Leaf Blade, Knockoff, Sacred Sword, Smart Strike, and then one of those could become Aerial Ace or Defog, right? Aerial Ace better on Banded, in my opinion, than Scarf, because you're actually OHKOing Buzzwole, which is one of the other checks. I wish it learned Facade. I think Facade would have been beautiful if it had it, but it did not learn Facade. I think they knew it'd be too powerful. Like I literally, Facade would be right on every set. Like, why not? Come in, get status.
Would be just about as strong. We'd be able to check
exactly.
some guys.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
very, very good Scarfer that actually fulfills a role.
Imagine
And then-
getting it on Rotom Wash, and then just getting Will-O-Wisp.
I know, getting Wisp, and then, I mean, you still do 1,000,000,000% with Leaf Blade, but getting Wisp and then like killing it with Banded. Exactly. I remember running calcs for this with ABR. We were prepping for his team tournament. I was like, shoot, it doesn't learn Facade. Damn it.
Yeah, well, I think they stopped giving normal coverage when they stopped giving return out as well. I don't know why that is. But
I have no
yeah,
idea either.
in Gen 6, I would say, or Gen 7, the speed tiers definitely got faster to where the choice Scarfer options were a lot faster. So if I wanted to run a choice Scarfer in OU, because the speed tiers had increased, you needed to go faster, but also you had to be stronger because, of course, the power had increased. Sometimes I think you have to consider as well Pokemon that would get like a speed boost, either because of rain or because of like a Dragon Dance or something. So I know Dragon Dance Zard, not a common threat, but if they're bulky, BD Zard, if you're a choice Scarfer, you want to be able to outspeed that potentially at +1. Keldeo was a funny choice Scarfer in Gen 8 because it could outrun Volcarona at +1.
Yep.
And so you had that option. Of course, that's not the most common set.
Yeah,
But
you're right.
you weren't usually going to run something that was base 70 speed because it's not going to outspeed.
It's not going to get the job done for you. Like, you might try, it might be a fun little surprise thing that you could try, but it's not, for the most part, it's not going to do much for you.
And so going up to Gen 9 now, because I guess that's the most relevant to today's builders. If we look at the speed tiers, of course, are, as we mentioned,
They changed a lot.
We have stuff that is faster. We have Zamazenta, and of course Dragapult's still there from Gen 8, but that's defining the speed tiers. But then we have the Photosynthesis and Quark Drive mons. And I think that that's warped what a choice Scarfer should be even more so. Because if I have a Sun Team, for example, which I know isn't the most common thing, but Sun Team I would say is the most common weather. Except for now that Granitar is back, maybe not. Maybe that's outdated. But Iron Moth in the sun will just always come out and be faster. It doesn't need to run a choice Scarf, right?
Yep.
And so now, if I am trying to revenge...
Well, Iron Moth, and Court Drive, fam. Boost energy. Remember, the sun isn't for Iron Moth.
Oh, you're right. But I guess they still run it on some teams. But yeah, it would be booster energy.
Correct, 100%.
Yes, and so if I wanted to come out and revenge kill it with a choice Scarfer, I can't really do that. The only way to do that is, with Dragapult, which is not running choice Scarfer.
Even the relevant choice Scarfers can't revenge kill it anyway, even if they were faster.
Well, that's what I'm
for the
looking
most
at.
part,
Like,
right.
Scarf Darkrai, if it's faster, is not outspeeding unless, I don't think that Psychic kills it. So
I don't know.
So you basically you can't run a choice Scarf to outspeed Iron Moth.
It's not gonna. Yeah, exactly. It's not gonna get the job done. However, you did mention a pretty relevant Scarfer at times on offense, and I think the thing that makes Darkrai a relevant Scarfer is that it's still a threatening Mon that can outspeed Booster Energy Valiant, right?
Yes.
And actually kill it with Sludge Bomb. That's a big one, right? It can actually kill Valiant with Sludge Bomb. But the also thing is that Darkrai can disrupt with Trick. I think that's what makes it a decent Scarfer. It can disrupt with Trick. It's those Ice Beam and stuff like that. For things like Dragonite and for things like Great Tusk and things like that, can Focus Blast, can Dark Pulse, whatever. But the big one is, if it doesn't like it, it can Trick away and disrupt something annoying and then still be a Darkrai with coverage, right? And get something out of that. And then Enamorus. While Enamorus can't Trick, Enamorus stab move is broken, right? Moonblast is one of the most broken moves in the game.
Yep.
And Earth Power is really, really good. So Moonblast, Earth Power, Mystical Fire, all you really need. And then your last move supports the team with Healing Wish. So it's an offensive Scarfer that can still support the team, kind of similar to how Latias could Healing Wish in Generation 4 and do that for its teammates. But and at least in the Namor's case, it'll also outspeed like Great Tusk and stuff like that, but not Val and not any of those. But besides that, there's not really like any good Scarfers from there. You might run the occasional Scarf Glamora, Scarf Golden Go. Both of them are kind of not doing as much. You might run Scarf Golden Go on offense, but you're better off running probably Air Balloon to actually be able to do your job. Glamora, Air Balloon, Red Card, Lead is most likely better. For the most part, you're not really doing much outside of that because they're not hitting hard enough, and they're not consistent enough either, in my opinion. At least Scarf Darkrai can always trick and can always check that and can tear out of things, but I just think they're not outside of those two. I don't think there's anything consistent enough. But maybe do you see anything different?
Hammerot is technically a Scarfer, but
yes, that's only because it can flip turn and cease edge. So it actually gives something to. It actually does give something that can. Yeah, you get value out of it. Even if it's a bad matchup, you get value out of it, right? It's not like going for Dark Pulse into a 4x resist. You're going for Ceaseless Edge and then getting a spike up, no matter what, if you land. So you get a lot of value. But outside of that, there's not really a lot of Scarfers
Walking
that run around.
Wake, but Walking Wake, let me see. If I recall correctly, I was looking at this the other day. Walking Wake is better with a Choice Specs and the speed boost under the sun, right? Because you still get the 1.5 speed from the sun, and then you would get the 1.5 from the specs. Whereas
100%. And then your Hydro Steam's still stronger anyway. Yes.
Yes, but if you do it backwards,
Where Scarf will only give you a 1.3. Yeah, it's a 1 point. It's a life orb boost versus a Choice Specs boost. So, yes, absolutely. There's not really very relevant Scarfers outside of those, and then even those Scarfers are doing things to protect them, right? Like I mentioned earlier, Enamorous would run Terra Ground on Scarf. Sometimes they run Terra Blast Stellar with Terra Blast so they can take advantage of things, which is fun. I think it's very difficult to sweep with that, but it's fun.
Yeah.
But usually Terra Blast Ground. It would run Earth Power with Terra Ground. That way it can check Raging Bolt and Oko it. But also if it's Modish Scarf Enamorous, some people actually even forgo Timid on Scarf Enamorous, which means you're not even checking all the Pokemon you want to. But because it gets the guaranteed KO on Ace with Earth Power with Modest. So that's like the big one. Because in Enamorous, you got to remember base 135 is extremely strong. Right, so like offensive Ace, it's not even guaranteed. It does 93 to 109, like to offensive Ace, and otherwise it's doing 76 to 90. But like, you live Pyro Ball back, so.
I would say Meowscarada. Is Meowscarada still used at all?
Definitely a Scarfer that can be used. Definitely a band mon that can, like a banded mon that can be used too. I don't know. I think it's hard to say it as a Scarfer though. That's another mon that's like. I don't know how much I like a mon that's forcing its typing. It's really good for the offense, but like you're taking advantage of by a lot. But it can trick, so maybe.
And I
can
guess
trick
that
any,
one
so
is
maybe.
probably more of an almost any ability kind of guy.
Yeah, that is. I mean, yeah, with Sniper, yeah, or Sword of Ruin. Excuse me,
Sword of Ruin, yeah.
Nasty mon.
I'm gonna be real, dude. All you have to do is click and attack with all your mons in front of you.
Yeah, I ain't never seen someone switch so much in HO versus HO.
Yes, no, that was on me. I for listening to this idiot for switching in a Talon lane.
Just Shaker Sword, though. Be honest, bro.
What? That's a bad play. Wait. Why'd you say your for? You just sat. All you had to do was sack Bulu.
Oh, I see what he's doing. He's telling me the wrong play so he can make fun of me afterwards.
Beef. It's what's for dinner.
Okay, so yeah, I guess there aren't really that many good Scarfers in general. But if I wanted to say there's a sort of a benchmark of what you have to be in terms of speed to outspeed a Pokemon and like be an acceptable choice Scarfer, I would say maybe like a base 80 speed is probably good. So
Yep, sounds about right.
Like Gardevoir,
as long as you can
80, right?
Yeah, anything that faster than Pult is the big one, I think.
Yeah, and so if you run Modest Gardevoir, you're not outspeeding, so you have to run Timid, and that actually sort of forces you into running weaker Pokemon, which is the second side of the sword when it comes to being a choice Scarfer. You run a base 80 guy, yes, you'll outspeed the most relevant speed tier to hit, but then you also have to run timid so that you're slower. Sort of similar to how with the adamant versus jolly dragonite, you have to run jolly dragonite, which makes you weaker.
Yeah.
So I would actually argue that nowadays base 80 is no longer sufficient. Obviously,
For speed?
we've yes, for a Scarfer, because we talked previously how there aren't that many in OU in the first place, but even if we go to those lower tiers, or to the lower speed tiers rather, we have the Golden Go at 84, so you're already one of the last holdouts for Choice Scarf is Golden Go. There's nothing underneath that ever runs a Choice Scarf, and that's already outspeeding base 80s. So if you're a base 80, you're not going to outspeed any Choice Scarfers in the tier that are normal, and you're not going to outspeed the Beast Boost, well, not the Photosynthesis Quark Drive guys.
Yeah, and then the Scarfer's right above Golden Go. Like, Glamora only runs it because it can make it, like, potentially still pick up a Dazzling Limb KO on Pulp or anything like that, or it can check Iron Moth by itself. But for the most part, they're not. Or, like, can check something like Cinderace and Cure. It's mainly for the surprise KO, so they're not really doing much.
Yeah, no, that's
outside of that.
Scarf Glim is a meme. I love Glamora as a Pokemon. I think it's really fun, but I would never recommend using Scarf Glamora unless you're trying to meme. And so I think that if we look at Golden Go, I would also argue that the reason it runs a Choice Scarf is not necessarily because it can outspeed guys, because a lot of the times it's not even. It's twofold. One, because it can disrupt with Trick, and two, because it can outspeed Great Tusk, which is his greatest enemy.
Yeah, and threaten it with a Make It Rain, which still doesn't kill. So.
Right. But you...
no, that's not... I think the Disrupt one is a big one. I would also say that there is one quote-unquote relevant Scarfer that's under base 80 that only does it to Disrupt, and that was the stupid Scarf Blissey that was that peaked the ladder. Not the one I used, but the original version of it that did peak the ladder, and it literally did that just to Trick Lock Raging Bolt, and then like annoy Pokemon like Slowking and Glaring Slowking and things like that, but just to Disrupt. But besides that, I agree. For the most part, you can't run it. And I see a quote here that by Picking Cross that says, if you can't outspeed the fastest non-Scarfer, if it isn't a good Scarfer, then puts up Dragon Ball as a benchmark. I don't think you always need to outspeed the fastest non-Scarfer, because like if I'm running a team with King Gambit plus Clefable plus like Tinglu, like it's not a great team, but who cares about Dragapult, right? Mm-hmm. It's okay as long as the Scarfer is helping me deal with that. But I think that's a decent rule to go by, because it is the most relevant Pokemon outside of it, and then it's also the one that can disrupt the most moveset wise. Specs, Banded, Heavy Duty Boots, Lead Sash. So I think that's why that was at least said.
Mm-hmm. And I generally agree with the sentiment, because if you can't outspeed the things you're supposed to be revenge killing, then that's a problem. But then it's also funny when you can't necessarily kill the things you're supposed to be outspeeding. So I look at something like Sandy Shocks in the UU tier. Sandy Shocks is 101 base speed, 121 special attack, and it has Bolt Beam coverage if you Terra Blast Ice, plus Earth Power and Power Gem. So basically, perfect coverage as far as I can tell, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't ever see it, you don't ever use it. You could technically run it on a Sun team and even get the extra boost on your special attack, although the synergy there might not be quite as much there. But you never see it. So the speed isn't necessarily sufficient to be a good choice Scarfer, unfortunately. But I would say Sandy Shocks is definitely in the safe zone when it comes to speed. Like, there's nothing that Sandy Shocks, if it's choice Scarf, is worried about outspeeding, except for Iron Valley.
Yes. That's fair. It doesn't get O-code anyway by most mons anyway. But the drawback is obviously that Sandy Shocks has to use Terra to hit the most common Pokemon for a KO and avoid KOs itself.
Yes. And then once it does that, of course, it's weak to Stealth Rock.
Exactly. And you have no Terra. So like, and you have no booster energy after if you're not Scarf, if you're actually running like anything else. So there's definitely a lot to trade. That's one of my favorite Sandy Shocks is dual screens. Mr. Crocker.
So then let's talk about like why something like Keldeo, which has Hydro Pump and Flip Turn, is not used as a choice Scarfer. Is it just a coverage problem?
No, actually, fighting water is really good, especially with Toxapex not being relevant. I think the big thing is that it's better with specs, dude. Like, actually, Terra Water specs, Pump, and Surf are 2 KOing. There was a team that peaked rank 1, or there was a team by CGC as well that was running modest specs, and it was Terra Watering, and Surf was 2 KOing Special Defensive Slow King, right? Like, it's a Terra Hog for sure, but it's a breaker like that too. But obviously, there's still Pokemon like Dragonite that can come in that are relevant. I would say Pult, but Pult's taking like 1,000,000,000% from a Specs Hydro Pump Terra Water. It just doesn't have. I think if it had Ice Beam that it has in ZA, you might actually see it be Scarf more, just because it's a good check. It's a guaranteed OCO on a lot of things. It's a good check to a lot too. But I think Specs just lets it break and it just takes a Terra with it. I still think Boots is pretty decent too. Like, I think in general having Keldeo is solid because you have Vacuum Wave and stuff like that for like King Gambit and things like that too. I just don't think it can't kill. It can't kill anything when its Scarf is big.
Okay, so it is a weakness thing.
There's no infinite rain, right? Like Generation 5 to let it click essentially a spec Surf.
And then of course being locked in, you have to predict if they're gonna go Glow King or if they're gonna go Dondozo or whatever.
Yep.
Although I guess Dondozo sort of walls it, his Sacred Sword.
If it's Spadef, yeah. If it's Spadef. Because like that Specs Pump Terra Water with 2-shot too. If it's not.
Well, for Scarfers specifically, I was thinking.
Yeah. That's fair, yes.
And I guess you have Ogerpon as well. So I guess the predict,
which you can't click, yeah. I think why run that when you can run Walking Wake in Sun without having to you don't give up anything, and then you have a Weather Ball, right? You actually have coverage, you have Dragon moves, and you have Hydro Steam, which is also like not weakened. So it's they're too weak. At least in OU, they're too weak.
Yeah. And so that is the question then. What is what is required in OU nowadays to be acceptable? Because I'm not running my Choice Scarf Nidoking, even if it were in the game. Sheer Force, Earth Power, and Sludge Waves just don't hit like they used to. And you have to have the right coverage, you have to have the right speed tier, you have to have the right base power on your moves, unless you're Kartana and you have base 188 attack. So really, there's not that many guys that can revenge kill all of the relevant guys because of the Quark Drive, Photosynthesis booster guys. And then
I think you have to. Okay.
Well, even if you said, okay, I'm just, forget the boosters, I'm just gonna speed everything else, you still have to try to break or try to be relevant when you're facing off against a team with fatter guys. Because if OU are just HO or offense, then you could probably get away with running some of the weaker guys. But when you have so many of these bulky guys that can come in like Avial Momola or Tinglu or Terra Garganackle, anything like that, well, all of a sudden now I have to just flip turn or pivot every single time, and now I'm not useful as a Pokemon.
Yeah, so I think kind of what we went back to, right? You have to still be able to actually kill something that you're intending to, but you also have to have some sort of team relevance that's going to help out in matchups like you mentioned where you're not able to do that, right? Enamorous can still Healing Wish. Enamorous can probably still clean up with Terra, Moonblast Fairy, or Terra Ground Earth Power late game. It's really good at that. But worst case, even if you have a matchup where that's not going to be great, let's take the stall matchup, for instance, where you're throwing away your Boots Hisuian Samura or your Boots Great Tusk to knock off everything and get damaged, but you end up getting poisoned or you get worn down. At least in this case, Enamorous can Healing Wish you back and allow you to continue to do what you're good at doing. And in Darkrai's case, we mentioned it already, but you're tricking, right? So you're actually able to check the relevant Iron Vow. You're still able to naturally check a King Gambit because you're typing, can Focus Blast. But worst case, they Terra or something happens, you can trick or you can disrupt a different team if it's better to not be Choice Scarf. I think those are the two relevant things. That really is. Samurott, you can still get up spikes even if the matchup isn't that great for a Scarfer, even if there's nothing you're revenge killing, For the most part, Samurott's probably revenge killing the same mons it's normally killing. The only exception is that you don't have to Sucker Punch a Dragapult. You can now Cecil's Edge it, right? So I think that's basically it.
So then this is maybe an interesting conclusion. What I'm hearing, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, but unless your name is Darkrai and you do outspeed everything normally, then you have to provide some kind of utility in addition to being a choice Scarfer. Either Trick for Disrupt, Healing Wish to help the rest of your team, or, literally have Ceaseless Edge.
Yeah, I think that's basically what I think. I think the other option is like, let's get rid of OU. Let's take OU away for a second. Let's go to RU, for instance. RU, one of the, well, I guess now it's UU, so it can't even do that in RU anymore. But okay, we'll take UU, for instance. One of the better Scarfers is actually Galarian Zapdos, which was also a top tier mon in RU, by the way, for the same reason. And Galarian Zapdos is it because it can do what Flygon did. It can U-turn out while not being weak to rocks, while having 2 great stabs that it can abuse very safely, while also taking advantage of Defog because of Defiant. So like Galarian Zapdos can do it in UU because of Close Combat, Brave Bird are high power moves, and because the relevant Pokemon in the tier. Whereas the tier is way different than OU, right? OU has high highs and then very low, like you have your fat and then you have like your super fast and then you have your in between. But it's way more diverse. Whereas UU, a Scarf Close Combat, a Scarf Brave Bird is, for the most part, you're two-shotting something if you need to.
Yeah, and UU seems to operate a lot more similarly to what OU used to be like 3 or 4 generations ago, where there's not too many unique Pokemon. You do have Battle Bond Greninja that's doing something funky and strange, but everything else is somewhat honest.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah. Like, of course, every Pokemon has their own thing that they can do, fine, but there's no Thunderclap, there's no weird Sucker Punch going on, and then there's not a lot of what else is up there? There's not a lot of signature moves that are really disruptive because nobody's too worried about Fickle Beam, for example.
And that mon's also still being used in OU, to be honest, so.
Mm-hmm. And then if you go down to like the tiers that I prefer to play, like RU, NU, you got like Mian Shao. You always have a Scarf Fighting type in those tiers, right? You gotta have a Scarf Fighting type. And those fighting types, I think, play by the more general rules, where it's like, okay, Scarf Mian Shao, it outspeeds everything, and it has close combat and knockoff, so it can do whatever it needs to do into your guys. Whereas in OU, being a Scarfer that has knockoff and U-turn, and then a strong move, like that's not enough anymore. You can't get away with that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So then I guess my advice to my future team building self would be run definitely above base 80, but probably base 85 I would say is the new 80 because of Golden Go. If you want to be fast, I would say at least that. And then you have to have some kind of support move, either Trick, Disrupt, Healing Wish to help against the fat or to let you play more recklessly. Although I will say, usually when I see a video, Healing Wish is used to justify bad plays, and then you never get the Healing Wish off in the end.
No, you're not wrong. You're absolutely right.
But conceptually, that's what it's there for. And then, of course, if you have Ceaseless Edge, then you're okay. Which is what makes...
Or at least in an Amorous' case, right? One of the also options where it's something on Trick Room, they'll run a Scarf and Amorous because it gives them some speed control over something. With obviously, Albumon's going to outspeed them, but also giving them a double back, right? Not as common as, Hatterene should be on all Trick Room teams because of Magic Balance plus Trick Room plus Healing Wish. Right. But I have seen Scarf and Amorous on Trick Room, so...
And it does make sense. I do know there are some Trick Room teams that have the just in case Scarfer. And that would be a good option.
Exactly. Or the room service contrary, Terra Fairy.
I have not run into that one, but that sounds like a decent set.
I got put down by it.
That's hilarious. All right. Well, then I think that's it for today. Thanks for joining me.
No, anytime, man.
All right.
Good, fun discussion.